Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to another Ghosts Recon Phantoms weapon review. And today I'll be reviewing the Halloween weapon pack, I should say the Halloween Tier 9 weapon pack, because it is pretty specific. They're not just special editions, these are what appears to be uniques. Some people believe otherwise, but personally I don't think there are going to be any Mod Master versions of these weapons. But I could be wrong, I just don't think it's likely. Now, today I'm going to be going from worst to best in terms of what I think the weapons are. I spent pretty much the whole day, to the extent that I could, playing with all the weapons yesterday. We tried them all out pretty extensively, of course some more than others. And so I developed a pretty decent feeling for all of them. Especially for the AR and the SMG, but I'll get to those last because I think they're the best. So let's start off with, and these are just my opinions, of course, with the LMG. You can see it here. My support's holding it. The M240 SP Halloween, Tier 9 weapon. Okay, no surprise there. What can be said about this weapon? Well, if you look at the stats, right away you see 58 damage and 770 fire rate, and you just think, what the fuck? Yes, it is a fucking DPS monster. In fact, the DPS, according to my calculations, is 744.3 points of damage per second. That sounds amazing, right? I mean, there's no other weapon that comes close. Not even the old Type 95 came close to that, which I believe it had a 663 point something, but don't quote me on that, before the nerf. And it just outclasses every weapon in the game in terms of raw DPS. That is absolutely the case. And on top of that, I've noticed it has a ×2 crit modifier. Not every weapon has that, but if you get a headshot or even a body shot, you're going to do double damage. And at 58 damage per shot, that's pretty substantial. Sounds great on paper. And who is this guy inviting me? And then accuracy is 80, which is kind of substandard for a lot of LMGs. But then again, it has a short barrel, so short barrel 80 accuracy is not too bad, I guess you would think. And control, well, if you just use a normal muzzle brake, it'll be 49. I put the MBFSO12T on it. And you just think, okay, man, this is a powerhouse. This is a fucking nuclear weapon that you can use. On top of that, the reload time is pretty quick. You know, just for an LMG. That's very quick for an LMG. Ready time is pretty quick for an LMG. So yeah, you have all these advantages, you think, right? But play with the weapon and test it out in game, and you'll see quite quickly that this is a piece of shit, unfortunately. A high DPS is not everything. It's everything at this range. You can see it just shreds the dummies. And this is how it works in game too. It just shreds stuff at this range. And maybe even at this range. But we're doing the test first out of cover, and out of cover the M40L, it has a bipod obviously, so the control and stability bonuses only apply to the weapon when in cover. But crouching is some sort of in between, right? It gives you more control and stability, but it doesn't give you the full bonuses. And at 30 meters, you're going to see there's already kind of a problem. I mean, I'm pretty good at controlling recoil, but I have to it's just insane the amount of recoil this thing has. Despite the fact that it says it has 49 control or whatever it might be, it doesn't seem like that's a bad level of control, but the thing jumps around a lot, as you can see. Let's try a little bit in cover. Okay, at that range, it's okay. But, 30 meters as an LMGer probably, I mean, it happens. Uh, and that's okay as well. So I think, as I said, this is a suppression weapon. 30 meters, it works pretty decently, but there are tons of situations and tons of different kinds of maps where you're going 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, even 90 in some cases. And once you hit 60 meters, yeah, if you can control the recoil, it's pretty good. I got a 176 headshot. But it requires a lot of effort. You can't go full auto. You're going to have to feather it at this range. Feather trigger tapping works best at this range. And even then, it's not really accurate. In fact, it's pretty inaccurate. I mean, you have stats, right? Such as 80 accuracy and 52 control or whatever. But those stats can be pretty meaningless compared to the actual weapon handling. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the weapon handling is how it actually plays out when you're using it in the firing range, and more specifically, in the game. And in the game, this is not a good weapon. You're not always going to have the option of being at, say, 30 meters range or 60. There's more often than not, you're somewhere in between. But you definitely, on bigger maps, can get in between 60 and 100. And personally, this is my own play style. I like to outsnipe snipers with assault rifles and LMGs. And say at 80 meters, forget about it. I mean, this thing is just all over the map. Yeah, those are lucky shots. You can feather tap it, but as I said, feather tapping with this weapon really is going to get rid of its main advantages, main advantage rather, is the DPS, the raw DPS. It's not the damage per bullet per se. There are weapons with higher damage per bullet, the PKM, the AK-200M. But, that's the strength. I use this on Tomsk. Clearly, based on my experience with this weapon after playing several matches with it, this is best used on Tomsk as a CQC weapon because it just shreds the enemy. 744 DPS, nothing's going to survive that. But the minute you get into range combat, you come into problems because of the lack of accuracy. Relatively speaking, like I said, up to 30 meters, it's fine. But then you go beyond that, 60, you're going to have to feather it a bit more. And it's just not a reliable weapon, I think. It's not very accurate. It has a weird control. It does... Yeah, you can see it's not really completely horizontal. There's a bit of jump, and certainly, at a longer range. There are weapons with worse control. I mean, my AKS SMG, the AKS-R, that's got the worst control in the game. But I just want to make the point that even though you can get away with feather tapping the weapon at, say, a 60 meters range, it's not a weapon that's really meant to be used for that, based on my experience with it, because it's a suppression weapon. You're supposed to be using it for that monster DPS, and you can kind of get away, like I said, you can get away with it at 60 meters if you have good control, but you will feel the recoil. Another thing about this, a final note about this weapon, is that people who like using support and LMGs, I personally feel might be turned off by the weapon for the simple reason that a lot of LMGs have very high control ratings, allowing for a lot of stability. And I mean, of course, that's not the same thing as accuracy, but then that translates into fairly accurate shots. You're not going to have this with this weapon. I mean, I'd argue that even the PKM is more controllable, even though the PKM does have more horizontal recoil. But if you want to use this weapon, basically use it in a CQC situation, such as Tom's Gallery. You could get away with it in Attica as well. If you're LMGing the top of Attica to control for enemy drop-downs and blackouts, this might be a good weapon to use. But really, it's not a bad weapon, but there's really nothing apart from its monstrous DPS that's really special. Um, I would not recommend this weapon. I would not endorse this weapon. I bought the weapon so you don't have to, but if you have a limited amount of money or only want to spend a limited amount of money, this is not the weapon, even if you love support, that I would recommend. Now, let me take the time to recommend some other things before I get to the shotguns and some other stuff. Obviously, I'm lucky I have the AK-200M. That's my go-to LMG, but most people don't have that. And talk about a setup that's comparable to this kind of suppression setup that you have with the M40L. It's the M96H, and if you watch my support montage, which check it out, there's a pretty cool track to it, with a short barrel and a grip. And those 150 rounds go a long way. Now, it's not the DPS monster of that weapon, obviously, because, 53 damage only. But it's just shy of the old Type 95. I think it's 662 or something very close to that. I don't remember off the top of my head. And this thing is really good in CQC. For one thing, because of the grip, it's a lot more stable out of cover than the other weapon is. I personally feel even at 40 or 60 meters, this is a lot more stable. I wouldn't be using it usually at that range, but still. And this is a great way to take the Mod Master and create a pretty beastie or bestial CQC weapon for the support. In fact, on Tomsk and other CQC maps, I would favor this over the AK-200M personally. So try this setup out. You have a relatively decent ready time with this setup. You put the grip on, the short barrel. I find this to be very effective, and especially if you don't want to waste the money and time on this Halloween M40L, which, as I said, has a lot of limited application. I mean, the worst thing about this weapon is that in a shootout, you're probably going to lose because of the lack of accuracy, and you're going to lose also to other LMGs, if only because they have more control and they'll be able to control their shots better. So, not really that good. Okay, let's talk about the other weapons. The shotgun I'm going to save for assault because I haven't actually, this is the only weapon I didn't use for support, but I use the shotgun quite a bit for assault. But the Judge, yeah. This is a shotgun and a pistol. It does a fair amount of damage. You can see the targeting reticule is basically a shotgun. And I think it does the job it's intended. Basically, this weapon is a shotgun in pistol form. And, in a CQC situation, if you run out of ammo or something, it can be pretty deadly. Aim for the head. I've one-shotted Recons, and you can basically take anything else out in 2 shots if you get a couple of headshots. Obviously, it has if you look at the stats, it's got 13 accuracy. It's not meant to be fired at any range more than a few feet away or a few meters away. But it's a nice pistol for what it does. Would I take this pistol over this pistol for, all-purpose engagements? Probably not. I mean, like I said, this has just much better range, much better stability, but you certainly can't kill things in one shot with the Watch Dogs pistol or the WDG or whatever you want to call it. In terms of fun factor, though, sure, the Judge is definitely supreme. Okay, so I'll talk about the shotgun when I get to the assault. But yeah. M240L, final analysis, final assessment. If you really want to spend the money and just have a DPS monster that has limited battlefield application, go ahead and do it. Spend the money. Otherwise, I wouldn't personally be wasting money on this. There are better alternatives that are already available. Even the Mod Master Type 95, because of its incredible stability and control and lack of recoil, is, I think, a better option. Moving across to Recon, let's start with the SMG. Now, you've probably seen, I actually favor, usually, I'm fortunate enough, the AKS 200R, even though it has shit control and terrible accuracy. But you know what? I played a lot with this Vector, and I like it. I like I like this Vector. It's really quite cool. And one thing about these weapons, these Halloween weapons, you'll notice is none of them are really overpowered. They're just either good or interesting, and they have special advantages and special disadvantages. Now, with the Vector, it's pretty obvious what the advantage is. It has 1,100 fire rate, right? So it's going to give you over 660 DPS, which is on an SMG is pretty incredible. And, you know, if you look at the stats, well, it's okay. 74 control accuracy, not bad. 34 control, you think that's not that much. But the thing is, you know, about these kinds of stats is with 1,100 rate of fire, it's pretty much a laser gun. I mean, I'm crouching here, and, you know, 30 meters, there's almost basically no recoil. And even at 60, it's basically no recoil, or that might be about more like 40 or 45. But let's try real 60. And yeah, still very little recoil. I do have to control it a little bit further back, and it's all in crouching. In fact, this weapon, just based on the feeling, I feel like I have more recoil when I'm, even it says I have, you know, control and accuracy bonuses, but it feels like it jumps up more than when I'm in cover than when I'm just, yeah, out of cover. And whether that's actually the case or not, I can't say, but this is very much a laser pistol. I guess I would call it a laser machine pistol. And it's a neat weapon. I like it a lot. As I said, the DPS and the rate of fire, and because of that, the control and relative accuracy, these are the strengths of this weapon. I enjoy using it. In most situations, though, personally, because I have the AKS 200R, I would gravitate to using that. But that's because of my personal bias or my opinion or just my feeling. I like weapons with stopping power. So with 36 damage per bullet, despite the rate of fire, it's kind of a pea shooter. It's just kind of, you know, it does the job, but it's just too weak for me. Even though I had fun using it, and I probably will use it on long range maps. It's rare that I snipe, so if I were to Roby Tech or something, I'd probably use this because, you know, like I said, it's got quite good range for an SMG, and the incredibly low recoil due to the fire rate, very manageable. I mean, certainly wouldn't be using it at 100 meters engagement, but could feather it, and that's okay. But very good weapon. Now, obviously, you can see the disadvantage: 30 shots per clip. The funny thing is, 30 shots per clip. That's actually the extended magazine. So the standard magazine, which I would have to buy extra, only gives you 20 shots per clip. But, you know, why would you want that? So the disadvantage is the small clip size. And the ammo pool is not fantastic. You have to admit that. But the problem I found using this weapon, and one of the reasons why I gravitate more to the AKS 200R, just a personal choice, is just because one enemy down, two enemies down, that's the best case scenario, but in real gameplay, most of the time, that's not how it plays out. And so I've died numerous times using this weapon because I'm just reloading. You know, I'm out of ammo, enemy down, and during that time, I'm getting killed because, yeah, I have to reload. So the disadvantage of this is in the small clip size, and which forces you to reload. I think because of that, this is much more of a run and gun style weapon. I'm someone who likes to run in and CQC a lot. That may or may not be a good habit, but because of that setup or the way I approach things, it's probably not my ideal weapon. But this is a really nice SMG. It's not overpowered, but it's very good. It does the job it's supposed to. That rate of fire is really nice because it does turn into a laser gun. Out of cover, even standing, it just has so little recoil, relatively speaking. And yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend this. I would use it in range maps. I would use it in situations where you don't have a lot of enemies or you only need to pick off one enemy. This is a good SMG to use. I would as much as I like the CPW, which I still have, which is similar, the CPW has other advantages. It has a bigger clip size, and I use a long barrel on it, so significantly more control, and somewhat lower fire rate. But this is the Vector. That said, the Vector is a pretty nice weapon, and I would recommend it. Let's get the sniper rifle. I'm not a huge sniper. It's probably my biggest weakness, but I can occasionally get some lucky streaks. And so what is this? This is a a semi-automatic sniper with a very slow fire rate. So the difference, if you look at, say, this and the SRS-H, so this is, see, it's semi-automatic. You don't need to reload. Right? And that, of course, people would say is the big advantage, right? You don't need to reload. And you can keep on firing. It's true you don't really need a super fire rate for sniper rifles. You don't need to spam it like some people do with the M14. But the fire rate, if it were a little bit higher, an 80 fire rate, that would have gone a long way, I think. But it is what it is. So it's a semi-automatic, slow fire rate. The settle time, as you can see, the AS-50 is a medium barrel weapon with a silencer SD. So settle time is not going to be optimal, because we all know by now that the short barrels give the best settle time, and settle time is pretty damn important when it comes to sniping. That said, I did have some success with it. I think it's a pretty good sniper rifle. The difference is, of course, you can't mod it. Do I think overall, comparing the two, these are the snipers I use at the moment. More actually the SRS-H with the grip and the short barrel. Well, obviously the settle time is a lot better, and I can fire out of cover with the grip, and it's, in that sense, a lot more efficient, even though it's bolt action. But so even though the SRS-H Mod Master has a 70 fire rate, it's still bolt action, meaning that you have to get back into cover, reload quickly, and scope in again. So you can argue that the advantage of the Halloween sniper rifle, the AS-50, is that you don't have that burden, you don't have that problem. Even though it's a slower fire rate, in effect, in actual gameplay, you have a faster fire rate because you're not popping back into cover to optimize, to basically to reload the bolt. It's not a bolt action sniper. So you can stay, if you want, popped out of cover and keep on firing. And, it's a bullet per, it's not bad. It's not bad. I'm not blown away by its performance. And really, for this sniper, it comes down to a question of preference. And do you like sniping? If you like sniping, you're going to find a use for this, I think. I'm not a huge fan of sniping, except with LMGs and assault rifles. And, this is, that said, I used it a bit on a couple of matches, and it worked out pretty well. It's a pretty nice sniper rifle. The settle time could be better, but, it's fixed the way it is. Would I get it? Like I said, if you like sniping, get the sniper rifle. If you're just kind of neutral about sniping, or don't have a strong opinion about it, or don't snipe at all, don't bother. In total, the Recon pack, I would give, say 50-50, right? Definitely get the SMG, especially if you don't have something that has a lot of stopping power, or you like that kind of rapid fire, quick kill, and then pop back into cover kind of thing, or pop back into wherever you are. SMG is definitely worth it. It's a very good weapon, not overpowered, good weapon. Sniper rifle's good, and it just comes down to whether or not you like sniper rifles. Moving on. Best fucking, hands down, best setup, best Halloween weapon there is. This thing, the AN-94, well, I don't normally say things but like this, but if I were to say I were in love with a weapon, it probably would be this one. Now on the surface, you can see this is kind of like a buffed M28. It's got almost as much damage, but 90 points higher fire rate, so it's gonna be slightly more controllable, and the damage is almost up there. It has a double crit modifier, I've noticed. And in auto fire mode, it's pretty similar in handling to the M28. You want to fire and cover ideally, and it's low recoil, and of course the difference is it's got 3 points higher accuracy. 90. This thing is just so accurate. It's insane. It's a even in full auto, it's a laser. Shorter distances, same. And even it's not too bad firing crouch as well. Whereas the M28 would probably give you more issues firing crouch in terms of recoil. But no. So yeah, it feels initially when you just fire auto like a little bit of an improved M28, just like the M28 was an improved MK17 and so on. But folks, if you're just using this weapon for full auto, you ain't using it properly. And this is just my opinion, but the strength of this weapon is not the full auto, even though it's quite good and it's got a pretty decent DPS, and you can fire it basically full auto any range and you'll still do reasonably well. You can feather it, and it's that accuracy. It's the burst mode. The burst mode on this weapon is unique, and you can look it up, but the AN-94 basically in real life has a sort of double-chambered, and I might be using the wrong terminology, burst mode that allows it to fire 2 bullets simultaneously, basically at the same velocity, leaving the muzzle, the barrel, at the same time. And they translated this into game pretty well. This burst mode is a fucking laser. It turns the gun into a laser. And the great thing about it is that you can use it at any range. Boom. Boom. You can see those double headshots. I mean, it's basically 2 bullets for the price of 1. Boom. It's just so accurate this way. It's insane. Now, the other thing you've noticed is you can keep on firing it. I mean, it's got a very high rate of fire within the burst mode. And it's a laser gun. You can see the shots at over 100 meters. It's just so accurate. It's so quick, so stable. The other thing about burst mode on this gun is it doesn't have any recoil. You start with auto. Full auto, and you do have to control the recoil a bit. The recoil is there. It's not bad by any means, and I could probably even control it at 100, even though I wouldn't want to do that. But you switch to burst mode, and boom, no recoil. Look, 130 meters, headshots like that with a burst mode. It's like a fucking laser. It's a laser cannon. Well, not really a cannon, more like a laser rifle. Yeah, it's a laser rifle. But you can see, even at that range. I mean, it's hard to scope in at 130 with a ×1, but it's just you can just see how insanely accurate this thing is with the burst mode, and just the lack of recoil. In real game, of course, I would never be trying this at 130. I couldn't see anything. I'm not a sniper. But up to 100, I've used this up to 100, and let me tell you, it is pretty effective even up to 100. Or even beyond that, if you can see. I use the Phantom Scope. I don't really like it on this for whatever reason, but the burst mode is just insane. It turns this thing into a laser rifle. There's no recoil. The accuracy is the highest of any non-sniper rifle in the entire game. And the great thing about the burst thing is burst mode is that you can use it at just basically any range. It's not, okay, first off, let me just say, some people hate burst mode. They just like full auto. I know I'm not one of those people. I think burst is really important. I use burst mode a lot, say on the AK200M. It's really important. If you watch my support montage video, you see all those crit headshots are just burst mode, not all, 90% of them, because that's what you do in long-range engagements. But the difference is, with the AK200M, I mean, you can look at here now, right? Then I switch, just for the sake of argument, for the sake of explaining things, AK200M, burst mode, and you can just see the difference in terms of how it works. I mean, there's recoil, it jumps a bit, and the further you get away, the worse the recoil and the jumping gets. It just doesn't really have that same accuracy. It makes up for it in terms of monster damage, that's true, but you know, totally different feeling. There's a lot of jump with it, but this thing, I think, whether you like it or not, was meant to be used in burst fire a lot, just because even at relatively short ranges of 30 meters or 40, certainly this is, you want to use it at 60. And this is a really effective anti-sniper rifle, up to about 100 meters, I'd argue, depending on what scope you use. Because, I mean, you can try a different scope. I mean, I haven't actually used the SUSAT, but because the burst fire has essentially no recoil, a scope like this, or, you know, we could try, I haven't even tried this, the Assault 3.5, normally you have to deal with a lot more recoil in an auto fire. But if you switch to burst, which doesn't really have that, I mean, look at that. It's just, it really does become a laser with this kind of scope, because you can the field of vision's a lot better. And if you use a bigger scope on this weapon, it'll allow you to become basically competitive at even longer ranges. I mean, the SUSAT would be more, it's going to be sort of 130, those headshots. It's just so accurate. I'm going to stick, personally, I think, with the Cobra. It's worked well for me. This burst fire, man. Burst fire is the way to go. It's meant to be used in burst fire. This burst fire option, like I said, it's a really effective anti-sniper counter, because the fire rate, you can, I hate to say it, you can spam it, right? And it's just so accurate, and the snipers can't do shit. Not even the M14 can stand up to this with the fire rate, and the double bullets. All bullets go in the same, landing in the same spot. It's so sweet. It's so nice. Amazing. But, as with all things, right, where there are advantages, there are disadvantages. This is particularly true in the medical field, right? Things that have a great effect on your body tend to have bad side effects. What's the problem, if you want to call it that, with this weapon? Well, frankly, it's got a really limited ammo pool. It's got a 135 ammo pool, right? 45 magazine size is pretty good for an assault rifle. But the ammo pool, and that's the extended mag, mind you, the ammo pool is 135. If we compare that with the Asphal, which has a ammo pool of, I believe, 160. No, sorry, 200, yeah. 4-inch shot at 200. You're a lot less worried that you're going to run out of ammo completely with the Asphal, or Asphal and SV in this case, than you are with the other weapon. And that's what I meant by these weapons being very good but not overpowered. The Halloween weapons are, yeah, they're just good weapons. They're interesting weapons. Even the shitty LMG, which I don't like, and you know, it's up to you if you want to use it. It's definitely it has its situations where it can be used. But this thing here, man, this AN94 SV, this has got to be my favorite gun in the game, and that's only after having used it for, you know, over a day. But it's just so nice. CQC, yeah, I mean, on Tomps, I probably would gravitate more to the Asphal SV, because just because it's, you know, it's got the fire rate and stuff, and It has a higher DPS by I think about 40 points compared to the other one, the AN-94 SV. But it just doesn't have the stopping power. As I mentioned, I like weapons with stopping power, and the damage per bullet, 56 versus 43 for me. That's pretty decisive. So, guys, amazing weapon. Not because it destroys everything in its path, but because of its precision, accuracy, utter lack of recoil when it comes to burst fire mode. It's just really, 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 really good. This weapon definitely. Sorry, this weapon definitely get it. Definitely get it. Amazing weapon. Amazing weapon. And the great thing about it's not like a Type 95 SD that you can just put in any noob's hands and they have a fucking, a death cannon. No, this is a weapon. You do have to aim it, but it's so nice. Shotgun. Well, if you like using shotguns, and I've been actually moving away from using shotguns more and more because there's just so many situations that it just, even on Tomsk, like shooting down corridors, the long corridors in Tomsk, where this, even at a range like this, the shotgun, it's kind of not that great. But it's pretty simple. This is a really good shotgun. Yeah. It's got a higher fire rate, relatively speaking, semi-automatic. 165 fire rate, very high accuracy for shotgun, 16, and 232 damage, which is just a little bit behind the Pentagon, which is definitely one shot, one kill. But the advantage of this is if you miss, you can quickly come up with another shot, and you'll take the enemy out. The other thing about this, unfortunately, is it's got a long reload time. It's one, you have to reload each pellet or each shell one at a time. Got a nice sound. It's very loud, so. But yeah, what can I say? It's a nice shotgun. Now, I don't have much more to say about it. For shotgun, it's probably the best shotgun you can use. And you can interrupt if you have rounds, you can interrupt the reload process, of course, with this shotgun. So, yeah, really good shotgun, definitely. Of all the packs, I would say, this one, the assault one, is the one to get. If you had to choose one, assuming you play assault, and you play all the classes, the assault one is the one to go for. You get the sweet shotgun, you get the amazing AN-94 SV, you get the pistol, which is fun. It's the way to go for sure. The Recon is somewhere in between. Maybe depending on whether you like sniping or not, or vice versa. You don't like using SMGs. But that said, these are pretty good weapons. The Vector is really nice. It's not an AN-94, but it's a neat weapon. And the AS-50, it's a pretty good sniper if you like sniping. I've talked about the disadvantages with the settle time and the relatively low rate of fire, but whatever. And the one I would least go for is definitely the the support pack. The M240L, like I said, it's a DPS monster, but that's not, in a shootout, that's not going to help you when you're feathering things. It's really only good if you're just up front, 2 or 3 meters away. Yeah, it'll shred things, but that's about it. So guys, I think that would be the end of my weapon review. I think that I was pretty thorough about things. One last time, if you have to buy one, get the assault one. It's the best. AN-94, amazing weapon. Shotgun's a good shotgun. Vector, very nice weapon. Not amazing, but very nice weapon. Sniper is pretty good. LMG 240L, I wouldn't bother. Anyway, everyone, thanks for watching. And if you hit that like button, it's much appreciated. Everyone, take care. And if you have questions, make sure to post in the comment section. and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye-bye.